1970s were a wild ride. Disco on the radio, bell-bottoms everywhere, and a gas crisis that made every drop of fuel feel like gold. It was also the golden era of budget-friendly cars. It didn't matter if you were a college student scraping by, a young family starting out, or just someone looking for a solid ride on a tight budget. The cars of the 70s had your back. They weren't perfect, and some were downright odd, but they were reliable, and most of all, affordable. Join us in this video as we explore 15 cars from the 1970s that poor people could actually afford. Number 1. Volkswagen Beetle. The Volkswagen Beetle rolled into the 1970s as a carryover from the previous decades, but somehow felt timeless, like your favorite pair of jeans. The Beetle wasn't flashy, it wasn't fast, but boy did it get the job done, and with style too. The Beetle was affordable because it was simple. Its air-cooled engine, located in the rear, was almost laughably basic compared to some of its contemporaries. But that simplicity was its superpower. Fewer parts meant fewer things that could break down, which made maintenance cheap and easy. The Beetle's affordability was legendary. For less than $2,000, you could get a reliable car that cost next to nothing to maintain. The Beetle's iconic round design was instantly recognizable. Driving it was an experience. It had all the horsepower of a lawnmower, but it was light and nimble. It felt alive, and in a weird way, it felt like it cared about you. It didn't pretend to be anything it wasn't. It was the car you trusted to get you home, even if home was 1,000 miles away. Number 2. Datsun 510. The Datsun 510 was like that quiet kid in school who could run circles around everyone on the track. You wouldn't know it at first glance, but under its modest exterior, this car packed a surprising punch. Why did the 510 stand out in the 70s? Well, for starters, it was a car you could afford without needing a small loan. Datsun, now Nissan, was just starting to gain traction in the American market, and the 510 became its breakout star. Not only was it cheap to buy, it was cheap to maintain. Parts were readily available, and the car was built to last. But here's where the 510 gets interesting. It wasn't just practical, it was fun. Really fun. Its lightweight frame, rear-wheel drive, and independent suspension made it a blast to drive. And then there was the engine, a 1.6-liter inline-4 that was surprisingly peppy for its size. Sure, it wasn't a muscle car, but it didn't need to be. The 510 was a car you could take on a twisty back road and feel like a racing legend. The 510 offered a sporty ride on a shoestring budget. For around $2,200, you could have a car that was perfect for the track and the carpool lane. It proved that you didn't need to spend a fortune to get a car that was dependable and enjoyable. And for those who owned one, the memories of this budget racer are still as vivid as ever. Number 3. Ford Pinto. The Ford Pinto. It's hard to mention this car without bringing up the elephant in the room. Yes, the Pinto had its flaws, explosive flaws to be exact. But for all its controversy, it was also a car that millions of Americans relied on. And there's something to be said about that. The Pinto was born out of necessity. In the early 70s, Ford needed a compact car to compete with imports like the Volkswagen Beetle and the Toyota Corolla. With a starting price under $2,000, it was one of the cheapest new cars you could buy in the United States. It wasn't a bad-looking car either. The Pinto's design was clean and simple, almost cute in its compactness. It came in a variety of styles, including a two-door sedan, a hatchback, and even a station wagon. And for all the jokes people make about it now, the Pinto sold incredibly well. By the mid-70s, it was one of Ford's best-selling models. Of course, we can't ignore the infamous gas tank issue. Rear-end collisions could cause the tank to rupture, leading to fires. It was a serious flaw, and Ford's handling of the situation didn't do the car any favors. But let's set that aside for a moment and focus on what the Pinto did right. For many families, the Pinto was their first car, a dependable ride that got them where they needed to go. It was easy to park, decent on gas, and cheap to maintain. Sure, it wasn't the most exciting car on the road, but it was a feasible option at a time when it mattered most. Number 4. Honda Civic. At a time when gas prices were soaring, the Civic arrived as the perfect solution. A small, fuel-efficient car that didn't feel like a penalty box. What made the Civic so special? For starters, it was affordable. Honda knew its target audience, people who needed a car that wouldn't break the bank. But the Civic didn't just stop at being accessible, it offered incredible value. The big selling point was its fuel efficiency. Thanks to its lightweight design and innovative CVCC engine, the Civic could stretch gas like no other car on the market. It was a game changer during the oil crisis, when every drop of fuel counted. Suddenly, Americans were paying attention to Japanese cars, and the Civic was leading the charge. By the end of the decade, the Civic had proven that a budget car didn't have to feel cheap. It was well-built, durable, and efficient, but it also had a little spark of personality. No wonder it became a household name. Number 5. AMC Gremlin. The AMC Gremlin didn't care about blending in. In a sea of sedans and hatchbacks, the Gremlin showed up with its stubby, almost cartoonish proportions and said, "Take it or leave it." And for many budget-conscious buyers, the answer was, "I'll take it." Launched in 1970, the Gremlin was America's answer to the growing demand for small cars. It was AMC's attempt to stand out, and boy did it ever. Its unconventional design was polarizing. Some people loved its strange charm, while others thought it looked like a car that had been chopped in half. Either way, you couldn't ignore it. The Gremlin was cheap, and that was its main selling point. Starting at around $2,000, it was one of the most affordable cars on the market. But it wasn't just the price that made it appealing. The Gremlin was surprisingly practical for its size. The Gremlin's reliability was decent for the time, and maintenance costs were low. It wasn't perfect, but it did its duty. Number 6. Chevrolet Vega. The Vega was GM's stylish response to the import invasion, offering sleek looks and decent performance for just over $2,000. It was meant to go head-to-head with popular imports like the Volkswagen Beetle and Datsun 510. On paper, it had everything: sleek looks, a competitive price, and the promise of innovation. But like an overconfident high schooler, the Vega had trouble living up to all the hype. Let's start with what the Vega did right. This car was sharp, had a clean, sporty design that set it apart from the boxier cars of the era. Under the hood, the Vega came equipped with an aluminum block inline-4 engine. This was cutting edge for the time, designed to make the car lighter and more fuel efficient. It was part of Chevrolet's plan to create a compact that could handle American highways while still competing with imports on gas mileage. When it worked well. The Vega had decent performance for its size, and it didn't feel like it was struggling to keep up with traffic. But then there were the issues. The aluminum engine block was innovative, but prone to overheating, which often led to expensive repairs. And let's not sugarcoat it. Rust was the Vega's arch nemesis. In parts of the country where winters were harsh and road salt was common, the Vega sometimes looked like it would melt away by spring. Still, for all of its faults, the Vega was affordable, good-looking, and easy to drive. And even with its problems, it sold well. Chevrolet moved millions of units during the 70s. Number 7. Toyota Corolla. The Corolla wasn't flashy. It didn't boast cutting-edge features or aggressive styling. What it did offer was consistency and affordability. You turned the key and it started. You drove it hard, and it kept going. You ignored basic maintenance longer than you should have, and it still didn't let you down. It was, in short, the perfect car for people who wanted to set it and forget it. The car was small but efficient, with a compact engine that sipped fuel instead of guzzling it. During the gas crisis of the 1970s, that kind of efficiency wasn't just a perk, it was a necessity. And while some budget cars felt stripped down and cheap, the Corolla came across as well constructed and solid. For many Americans, the Corolla was their introduction to Japanese cars, and it made a lasting impression. It showed that a budget car didn't have to feel like a compromise. It could be affordable, trustworthy, and even a little fun to drive. The Corolla of the 70s set the stage for Toyota's rise to dominance in the global car market. It proved that if you focused on quality and reliability, the rest would take care of itself. And decades later, the Corolla is still going strong. Number 8. Plymouth Valiant. The Plymouth Valiant was the kind of car that didn't turn heads, but it always completed its mission. It wasn't glamorous or exciting, but that wasn't the point. For people who needed a long-lasting, budget-friendly car in the 70s, the Valiant was like the dependable neighbor who always lends you a ladder without asking questions. Chrysler's legendary Slant 6 engine powered the Valiant. This was the car you could drive across the country and back without worrying about it breaking down halfway through Kansas. Another thing the Valiant had going for it was its size. It was a compact car by American standards, which made it more fuel efficient than the big land yachts of the 60s. At the same time, it wasn't so small that it felt cramped. It hit that Goldilocks zone of being just right for a family on a budget. Starting around $2,400, the Valiant was slightly pricier than some compacts, but its bulletproof durability and low running costs made it a bargain in the long run. Even today, you can still find old Valiants chugging along, their owners proudly swearing by their reliability. Number 9. Fiat 128. The Fiat 128 might not have been the most popular car in the United States, but it carved out a niche as a stylish and manageable budget option. What made the Fiat 128 stand out was its engineering. It was one of the first cars to use a front-wheel drive layout with a transverse engine, a design that would later become the standard for small cars. This setup allowed the 128 to maximize interior space without increasing its overall size, making it incredibly efficient. The 128's small engine was no powerhouse, but it was zippy and fuel efficient. This was a car built for city driving, where its handling and tight turning radius made it a joy to navigate through crowded streets. And thanks to its lightweight design, it didn't feel sluggish, even with its modest horsepower. For under $3,000, the Fiat 128 offered European engineering, excellent fuel efficiency, and just enough Italian charm to make it memorable. For American drivers willing to take a chance on something different, the Fiat 128 offered a unique blend of economy, style, and innovation. And while it never achieved the mainstream success of some of its competitors, it remains a noteworthy chapter in the history of budget-friendly cars from the 70s. Number 10. Dodge Dart. The Dodge Dart was the everyman's car of the 1970s. Affordable, dependable, and just rugged enough to handle whatever life threw at it. What made the Dart so appealing was its versatility. It came in a range of body styles: sedan, coupe, wagon, so there was a version for just about everyone. Need a reliable family car? Dart. Want something with a bit of flair? Dart. Looking for a muscle car vibe on a budget? You guessed it, Dart. Especially with its optional V8 engine. Speaking of engines, the Dart had plenty of options, but the Slant 6 was the star of the show. This engine was nearly unkillable, and it helped the Dart earn its reputation as a car that could take a beating and keep on rolling. The design of the Dart was nothing fancy, but it had a certain charm. The Dart's solid build and indestructible Slant 6 engine made it a smart buy for those willing to spend a little over $2,500 for lasting value. Number 11. Renault 12. The Renault 12 wasn't the flashiest car of the 1970s, but it had something that many budget cars lacked. Designed in France but sold worldwide, the Renault 12 was a humble yet highly capable vehicle that captured the hearts of drivers who wanted a trusty and affordable car with a touch of sophistication. One of the Renault 12's standout features was its versatility. It came in sedan and wagon variants, making it a fitting choice for families, professionals, and anyone who needed a little extra cargo space. Its clean, straightforward design was functional, rather than fancy, but there was a subtle elegance to its simplicity, proof that you didn't have to sacrifice style for reasonability. The Renault 12 came with a small but efficient 4-cylinder engine that prioritized fuel economy over power. While it wasn't going to win any drag races, the Renault 12 handled everyday tasks with ease. The Renault 12 was successful in markets all over the world, from Europe to South America and the United States. The Renault 12 brought European practicality to American buyers, offering a stylish, fuel-efficient ride for around $2,500. Number 12. Subaru 360. The Subaru 360 wasn't just a car. It was an entry ticket to the American dream of car ownership for those on the tightest budget. With a price barely over $1,000, the Subaru 360 was one of the cheapest cars on the market, perfect for first-time buyers. Tiny doesn't even begin to describe this car. The Subaru 360 was classified as a kei car in Japan, meaning it was designed to fit within strict size and engine limits. This made it incredibly lightweight, tipping the scales at just over 900 pounds. The 360's size made it perfect for urban environments. Parking, a breeze. maneuvering through tight streets easy as pie. And because it was so small, it achieved excellent fuel economy, which was a big deal during the oil crisis of the 1970s. What really set the Subaru 360 apart, though, was its price. It was one of the cheapest cars on the market, making it an appealing option for students, young families, and anyone else on a tight budget. Of course, it wasn't exactly luxurious. The interior was as basic as it could get, and the ride could get bumpy, but it got you where you needed to go. Number 13. Volvo 140 Series. The Volvo 140 Series wasn't the cheapest car of the 1970s, but for what it offered, it was a good bargain. This Swedish import became known as the sensible choice for drivers who wanted something safe, unfailing, and built like a tank. Volvo had already earned a reputation for safety by the time the 140 Series hit the market. It featured innovations like crumple zones, 3-point seat belts, and a reinforced passenger cabin. For families in the 70s, that kind of peace of mind was worth its weight in gold. The 140 Series wasn't just safe, it was versatile. It came in several body styles, including a sedan, wagon, and coupe. So there was a model for just about everyone. And despite its reputation for being sturdy, the 140 Series was surprisingly fuel efficient for its size, making it a wise choice. While the design wasn't flashy, it had a certain elegance. The clean, boxy lines gave it a no-nonsense appearance that appealed to drivers who valued function over form. The 140 Series featured durable engines that could handle high mileage with ease. Number 14. Mazda RX-3. The Mazda RX-3 brought something truly unique to the budget car scene of the 1970s, a rotary engine. This little Japanese coupe combined affordability with cutting-edge technology, and it quickly became a favorite among drivers who wanted something that stood out. Mazda's rotary engine was the star of the show. It was smaller and lighter than a traditional piston engine, but delivered impressive power for its size. The RX-3 could rev higher than most cars in its class, giving it a sporty, fun-to-drive feel. And while it wasn't a full-blown sports car, it came pretty close, at a fraction of the price. The RX-3 styling also set it apart. With its sleek lines, chrome accents, and aggressive front end, it looked more expensive than it actually was. It came in coupe, sedan, and wagon options, so whether you wanted something sporty or spacious, there was an RX-3 for you. The RX-3's price reflected its innovative rotary engine and sporty appeal, offering something unique for under $3,200. Number 15. Chevrolet Chevette. The Chevrolet Chevette was a no-frills car designed to be affordable and easy to maintain, and in those categories, it excelled. Launched in 1976, the Chevette was GM's answer to the growing demand for small, fuel-efficient cars. With its compact size and lightweight design, it was perfect for navigating the gas-strapped 1970s. It came with a modest 4-cylinder engine that prioritized economy over performance, but for many drivers, that was precisely what they needed. The Chevette's real strength was its simplicity. This was a car that anyone could drive, repair, and afford. Parts were cheap and readily available, and the car itself was easy to work on. For young drivers and budget-conscious families, it was an attainable choice. The Chevette wasn't going to win any beauty contests, but it had a clean, straightforward design that aged surprisingly well. The cabin was basic but functional, with just enough room for 4 passengers and a few bags of groceries. Chevette wasn't flashy or exciting, but it didn't need to be. It was dependable, affordable, and simple, a car that simply got the job done. And in the 1970s, that was exactly what a lot of people were looking for. Did we leave out any 70s budget-friendly cars? Let us know down in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more awesome videos just like this one. See you next time.